Hi,
Hi, guys.
welcome back to Pickled Geeks. Tonight we have a special guest.
Totally. Very
And
special.
Very special, so knowledgeable. We're going to have a chit chat with a friend of the show, friend of the family,
Yeah.
Denny.
Denny.
And he is a. Superman's very tired
Superman's
tonight.
tired
So
for Denny.
He is a comic book collector, and he also has really taken it up a notch to go into the collecting on a, I would say, semi-professional level. I mean, he calls it a hobby, but he knows a hell of a lot more than we do.
Pressing and cleaning comic books. What?
Knows
On
all
your
about,
own?
On the grading. He knows all about the grading, which we have zero experience with.
Yeah.
So he suggested a drink we mix up, a little vodka and soda with a splash of cranberry, and we're going to have a chit chat with him.
Cheers.
Cheers. Let's go do it.
Okay.
Why don't you tell us about how you got into the hobby?
Yeah. Gosh, it started in 1992. My first foray into comic books, and I was with some friends. I had never thought about comics, cared about them, or anything like that. But it was when Spawn was coming out. Todd McFarlane was beginning the Spawn, broke away to Image Comics, and so they all said, "Oh my gosh, this is going to be the biggest thing in the world." And so I went to the comic shop with them and bought my first comic book ever, which is this actual comic in my hand right here in 1992. And so I stuck with them for a while, going to the comic shops, and I bought more Spawns, some other Image comic things, The Death of Superman, another one that was supposed to just make everyone rich one day.
Ah.
And then time went on, and I started, doing other things, and I really wasn't doing much with it. And so I tucked them all away and put them in the attic. Until probably 2023. And I was up in
Wow.
the attic doing some things, and I found where I had tucked away this and a handful, probably 20 other comic books. That's it. And I was like, wow, what should I do with these? Did I make my millions? Because Spawn, all this type of stuff was supposed to just be so big. And I started looking, and I discovered that Spawn was still going on. There was a big following, but Spawn #1 was probably the most printed book in the history of the world, and so
Yeah.
the value really wasn't there in the
That's
early
my luck.
stages. Yes. So, but anyway, I started discovering that you can get them graded and all this type of stuff. And so I very eagerly took my probably 10 of my Spawn comic books and just read the instructions on how to ship them off. I didn't do anything to CGC, and they came back, and I was hooked. But then I learned I got bad grades on some of them because they were sitting in the attic and all this type of stuff. And that's when I learned, okay, there's an art and a science to this. But it all started with the Spawn #1 is when I got into it. But I'm probably, for any collectors watching here, I'm probably the kind of comic collector that people don't like. I truly like the comics for the art and the cover work. And there's a lot of factions, as you might imagine, of, well, you've got to read them and don't get them graded and all this type of stuff. So I really appreciate the art and the nostalgia of them. I haven't read every single comic book I have, and that warrants some flaming, and I'm ready to take it. But yeah, that's how I started.
Is interesting. We both have some #1s and what we had hoped would be $1 million comics. And same experience, they are not. But I've never done the grading process.
I know. So
Mm,
but the ones on the wall behind you, are
mm,
those some of the
mhm.
first ones that you sent away? Secret Wars in particular. I have that one. And
Oh, yeah, yeah. So Secret Wars #8. So these are not original ones I purchased. The original ones I purchased, I didn't take care of good enough to yield a good grade. I bought two of the Spawns, and I think out of the 10, two of the Spawn #1s, sent one in for grading. And but all of these on the wall are my buildup of getting them, and many of them I purchased already graded. A few of them
Okay.
I pressed and cleaned and set them in for grading. But these are kind of where I'm working to find my lane, as you would say, about how to collect and walk that fine line from hoarding and collecting and, having something I like versus just amassing everything. But these are all a lot of, I rotate what I show on my wall quite a bit.
Great.
And these are just ones that I like. A lot of people watching would know Hulk 181. That's the first official appearance of Wolverine.
Oh, yeah,
X-Men, Giant Size X-Men #1 is a most people know about that. And then
totally.
I do a lot of Spawn. I really like Spawn, and so I found a lot of more rare Spawn books, that had lower print runs and stuff like that. So
Okay.
I've got a mixture of ones I've acquired raw and worked on and got graded, or I've just purchased already graded. Or I find one of the biggest things in the comic community is trading. I don't know if that's like that with other collectibles, but
Yes.
if you ever post something up for sale, people are like, will you take trades? And so I've also just evolved the collection through a series of trading through Facebook.
Okay, so that was sort of my next question. So do you have a group of other like-minded collectors that you trade and you talk about,
Hmm.
do you belong to Spawn, fan
Yeah,
book, you know, fan book
great
club?
question. Yeah, I'd say the biggest community I found where the most action is on Facebook. It's called Book Group. And there's a lot of other ones, and there's specialty ones for Spawn or you name it, Golden Age and all this type of stuff. But Comic Book Group is one where I've done a very high volume of trading and buying and selling. And it's a really good community of all comics. So it's not one particular type. A lot to learn.
I think Laura and I both, we come from kind of the different background, and I'm not going to flame you at all because I appreciate you're displaying your comics better than mine because I should
Mm,
have had the forethought to buy two copies so that when I reread
mm,
one of them over and over again until now they would be like a one on the
hmm.
grading. I should have kept that other one, but I didn't have the forethought to do that. And even now, I don't do that, and I should be doing that. Um, Especially
Yeah.
when now variant covers are so popular. It's
Hmm.
I should be getting a regular and a variant. That's things to
Yes.
note and do in the future.
Our friend Mike, what did he buy recently? And he bought all the covers, all the variants
Yeah.
of, what was it,
Mm.
Nightwing, or something?
Oh.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll
And
put it right here.
yes.
That's how we fix everything. We just put it right here.
So the cleaning part, how did you, was this a quick
Mm.
Google? Did you learn to do that?
Yeah. So after I learned my lesson of just sending them in straight from the attic, I started YouTubing quite a bit and finding. First of all, I was like, the services like CGC and CBCS are the two big grading companies for comics, and they
Okay.
offer a cleaning and pressing service. And so when you send a comic in to get graded, it can be from $25 up to 3% of fair market value. So if it's a big book like a Hulk 181, they'll charge you a percentage to grade it and slab it, as they call it. But they
Okay.
also offer pressing and cleaning services, which is another fee. And so I was like, this could get very expensive. And if I'm going to sell some of these, there go the margins, right?
Right.
Sell things that are interesting to others, but aren't really in my sweet spot. So I did a whole lot of research. And saw what you get and what you buy and all that type of stuff. And so in my office over in the corner, I don't know if you can see, I've got a little
Yep.
press, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just like a heating press, just like you do with a t-shirt or something like that. And
Okay.
so there's a very scientific way to heat it, how long you heat them, whether it's an older or a newer book. And then the cleaning aspect is not as simple, but you can take an eraser and very gently clean it and then use cotton and all this type of stuff. Some people which is frowned upon, can use a mixture of hydrogen peroxide and water, which
Yeah.
when heat happens, it just turns into water vapor, it goes away.
Yeah.
Uh, and so there's a very tedious task of getting the white clean and everything like that so it presents well. And then it's patience because to do one book at a time, you leave it in under heat for, let's say, 5 minutes, but then you leave it in the press for sometimes 6 to 24 hours,
Oh,
and then you
wow.
can cold press it,
Mm.
and then you see what it's like. But the whole point of pressing, comics can get wavy or bent and all this type of stuff, and spine ticks. If they're not color breaking, you usually can press those out. Now, if they break the color on the comic, that's when you start taking a hit on the grade, which as you
Yeah.
get, like, I've got a really old comic book here. You can see along the sides, like it's got color breaks and
Yeah.
things like that. So now that's expected for an older book. But if you've got a newer book or one that doesn't have color breaks, you can press out the wrinkles to get rid of that. But you can't fix a color break.
And
Well,
does the cover process about the same as the interior pages?
yeah, yeah. So the interior pages, you don't do a whole lot with that. You really work on how the cover looks. The interior pages, you want to make sure they're not ripped or detached or anything like that. Uh, for the interior pages, they measure it by white, off-white, cream. And so the
Hmm.
most coveted, of course, is white pages versus an off-white or cream colored. But as it gets older, that gets much, much harder.
Yeah.
Uh, to obtain. But they don't
Just,
hurt your grade with white or off white or anything like that.
oh, it doesn't. So it's not the hues that would affect your grade. The hues
Right.
of white. I didn't know
Yep.
if you
But
got that
it
link.
affects the price. It
It
affects the
affects the
price of the
price.
interior pages. If they're so a lot of people, I was just talking to a gentleman, I was trying to trade my Hulk 181, which has off-white pages for a higher grade and maybe throw some cash or something in. He only collects books that have white pages. So that
Oh,
one's
wow.
really hard to find with white pages. And so everyone finds their thing. And so he was like, "Oh, yours has off-white pages. I couldn't possibly trade for that." So, which makes
Won't
sense,
talk to him again.
My collection would
Just
kill him.
just don't talk to him again. So this is
Right.
crazy. So now I want to know. Well, it's
Hmm.
hard for you to see, huh? So these are.
Mm.
This is from 1989,
Okay.
and
What book is that?
this is Superman.
Oh, cool.
Um,
Cool.
yeah, I love this cover. Speaking of which, so I'm sure that's why I
Yeah.
bought it. But
Yeah.
we're going to be talking about the movie soon, so I'm pulling out
Oh,
things that
cool. Yeah, that looks
um
like it's got potential, doesn't it?
it does. I love it.
This is in great shape.
So
The binding or whatever you call it.
yeah, from 1989, it's in good shape, but
Yeah.
these pages are never going to be white if they were already, just by nature of the comic. Can you
They
tell?
don't look what that might get classified from what I can see. They have a classification called white to off-white. So it's kind of in between that. So that's not bad at all. It could be close to white. A lot of those modern books, after 19 in the 1980s, 1990s,
Yeah.
you can get white pages. It didn't look bad at all. And if you look at it under like a light, you got to look at it at angles and see if there's any wrinkles or anything like that. You got to really, when they grade it, they sometimes use a magnifying glass and everything to look for any kind of flaw or fingerprint.
Do you ever mess with the staples on the inside?
Uh, You can't. The staples, some people have tried to replace staples, which there's a way to do it, but
Yeah.
there's a label called the purple label of death. And it's if you restore a book, uh, or if you just use a little black marker because there was a color break, they will still grade it, but they'll give you a purple label and it's called restored. And collectors, that loses tremendous value. And so if you have a staple, you look for rust. That's a big thing. That's a
Yeah.
no-no. And then detached, like if the cover is coming detached from the staple, you'd have a problem. But normally, a book that new, if you treated it okay, um, the staples are probably fine.
Yeah, it's okay. They've been in boxes, comic book boxes,
Hmm.
since, whenever. And so here's an older one that I'm
Oh,
sure.
Journey into Mystery. Cool. Number
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, number one. What is it? Am I gonna,
Are we
can
going
I,
to retire?
can I retire?
I can't.
That could be the one.
I can't take the money, but I can certainly visit often.
It's probably
Yeah.
not worth anything, but,
It again, it seems like it's a
it,
little wrinkled, but not
it's a
bad.
little wrinkled. It's in, um,
Oh, yeah, I can see. So that would probably press just fine. Are there any color breaks on this? Oh, I see some of the wrinkles now, which is
yeah.
not bad at
And there's a
all.
hole where the staple is, so it's not,
One
Oh,
staple's
yep. So that
intact
would
and
be a
one's
ding.
not.
Yep.
yeah.
So that would, you'd get a ding on that. But older books, there's people, some of the, Action Comics number one or Amazing Spider-Man number one, people get them that are graded a point 0.5 and they're still worth thousands and thousands and thousands of
I
dollars. So
know.
as they
Um,
get old, it's okay that they're a
so
little beat up.
do you use an app to
Hmm.
check the value of your
Yeah.
books?
Hmm.
Um,
Yep.
which app do you
Uh,
use?
so I currently use three apps. So there's one called CLZ. That is what I document my collection in. So CLZ is a really great database where you can organize and document your comics in that. I think they do cards and movies and all that type of stuff too, but they have a really nice comic app. You can then combine that with an application called Cover Price, COVR Price.
Okay.
And that kind of takes some market values and all this type of stuff. And so CLZ and Cover Price have an integration where you can in CLZ I can kind of see the price. Now, there's a real Cover Price isn't terribly accurate because it's hard to tell what the grade of a raw comic book was when it's sold on eBay or somewhere, right? Uh,
Yeah.
the the de facto measure for value for graded comics is called GPA. And so that tracks market trends and sales of comic books for grades. And so you can say Hulk 181, off-white pages in 6.5, which is what that is. And it'll show the last sale, the last sales for 2025, the 90-day average, the 12-month average. And so you can see which way books are trending. There's some folks on YouTube that do. I think one of them is called Swagglehouse. Does comic book index, so it takes the top 100 books from each category and trends how they're doing in the marketplace, like
Oh,
just like
wow.
you would stock. So those are the three comics I use, and then you look at eBay last sales to sold activity as well as just a
Yeah.
brush up on it.
It's amazing that eBay really dictates the market. And,
Mm-hmm.
same with Funko. I mean, we do the same thing. The last sale of this Funko
Mm-hmm.
was this, and so we know what the cost is going to be, and databases use that.
eBay is where a lot of transactions happen.
And do you use that to determine what you might start looking for?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So I right now I've got some books that I'm probably going to press and clean. Let's see, what's a good example here? This is a pretty good example. So this is
Yep.
Omega Man number three. It's the first appearance of Lobo. There's a movie coming out
Right.
for Lobo, and so that's a hot book right now. And
Yeah.
so it's a good time to consider selling that. Daredevil has been really hot with books because of the series that's out there. So a lot of times with comics, it's not flawless, and it depends on how good the movie. So Superman, super hot right now, right?
Yeah.
Because of the potential movie. And so a lot of times you try to find where the market is and what's heating up a little bit. You try to catch that curve at the right time. And so this Omega Man isn't one that I'm attached to, you know what I'm saying? Like as far as personally wanting to collect,
Yeah.
but it's a hot book that if I press clean, get it graded, it comes back nicely. It would be a great one to sell while the market's interested in it.
So, and how does the bill become a law? Do you immediately go to your Facebook group, or do you put it on eBay, or
Oh.
how do you,
I
reach out to
use
your buddies?
I start on Facebook typically, but I have to know that probably it's going to be a lot of trading versus someone wanting to buy. Uh, but if something sits along or there's no trades that I'm interested in, or I literally do want to move it, I will go to eBay. But that's you take a hit with the fees and all this type of stuff,
Do.
right?
What's next for you? I mean, in
Yep.
terms of,
Yeah. I would love, so I've been at my job now for quite a long time, a career, for just under 30 years. And as I start looking into retirement or what the next chapter is, uh, I want to do something fun, mix a hobby with something like that. So that's where I started dabbling. I've purchased some big collections in bulk from people. And I think it would be fun to do that and find great treasures. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you stumble upon things unexpected. Uh, this world's finest. I'll use this as an example. Again, I mentioned I bought a collection 2 weeks ago of about 350 books, kind of a blind buy. And this was one of the gems. This world's finest. 153 is known because it's one of them where Batman slaps Robin. It's called the Batman slap, and so it's a
Oh,
kind of a book
it's a
that people
meme.
want,
It's a
oh
meme.
Yeah,
God, yeah,
exactly. You're exactly right. And
Yeah.
so that
yeah.
came from this book.
Oh,
And
that's
so
great.
I think it would be fun to weave comic uh collecting and obtaining books and selling them as maybe a fun thing to do that might have some money on the side. But that's where I'm practicing to figure out how to do it because I've had a lot more failures. I've bought high and sold low far too many times to
Yeah.
have it completely figured out yet. But that's what I'm working towards.
Well, I think of for somebody like me, did you ever think about or offering like a finder's fee? Because
Mm,
I have some books that I have that, like I said, aren't worth very much, but I
mm,
would definitely take a nicer copy of it, but I don't know when I'm getting screwed. And I would like
that's
somebody
true.
with your
Yeah.
experience, if I said
Hmm.
I'm willing to pay $150 for this particular book, would
Hmm.
you,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that would be a real service.
Would be.
Yep. Yeah, there's folks that are hunting for hard to find books. There's some books, Spawn or whatever, that are pretty easy to find. But as you start looking for older books, it gets. I'm looking for a book called Star Spangled Comics number 79, which I can't find anywhere, and I'll share why I am. But there are people that will hunt for books that have huge networks, and they'll try to find them.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, there is a play there as well, for sure. So I'd love to do that because the hunt, as you probably know,
Yeah,
you're collecting, the hunt is almost better than actually obtaining at some
yeah,
point, right? When you find it, you're so excited when it's going to get delivered, then you get it and they're like, all right, I'll throw it over here in the drawer. There it is.
yep.
So
Yeah.
I think that would be neat too. That's a good point. Very good point. But that Star Spangled Comic 79, the other thing I did, you remember how I said I like covers? I started after I did Spawn, I started collecting comics that are inspired by Salvador Dali. And so I've got a lot of comics that were inspired by Salvador Dali. Here's a Spider-Man, and this is where you mentioned variants. They're not worth much at all, but there's a Spider-Man because I love Salvador Dali. This is a Department of Truth. You can see the homage of if you know
Yeah,
Salvador Dali. But
yeah.
so I started finding those. One more book is the Star Spangled Comic 79. That was a very old book that was inspired by Salvador Dali, but I can't find it anywhere.
Well, gosh, there's so much.
I would love, yeah. I thank you so much. This is so interesting. We talk a
Sure.
lot about comics, so we probably will reach out again if that's okay.
Yeah, this one
Okay.
still actively goes to the comic book stores, and I'll go
Oh,
occasionally.
great.
I have big long boxes of maybe two or three out in the garage. So if you
Oh
ever
my
come up with
gosh.
Ann,
Wow.
look at his face. He's like,
Yeah.
wow.
I'll thumb through them. Yeah,
Yeah,
very good, very good. Well,
You need
don't
look for.
ever just sell comics without someone helping evaluate them because sometimes there could be 99 junkers and one thing in there that could truly be valuable. So if you ever do decide to sell or move or trade, make
yeah,
sure you're being guided by someone you trust. Because
yeah.
there's people I've heard stories that sold something and they get, comic worth $10,000, and the poor old lady or kid who got it from his parents didn't know. So uh,
Did
make
that.
sure you, just like with your Funkos, don't just let them loose on someone's word.
Never. I would never let my Funkos loose.
No.
Well, you have a nice night. It was so nice talking to you, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you
Okay,
so
sounds
much.
great. Thank
All
you.
right.
Great seeing
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank
You
you. Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right.
Hi.
I really feel like I learned a lot.
Me too.
We will definitely have him back.
He's so sweet and knowledgeable. I feel like he will have given you more information in one episode than we have in 100.
It's possible. It's very, very possible.
No, I love it.
But on that note, until next time, stay pickled.
Stay geeky.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.